the way people feel.
But you see, of course, for me now, learning that, of course, once in a while, you may not have a lawyer, but you start to see the value of your work.
Yes.
Currently, I'm starting to see the value of my own work, and I'm very, very hesitant. And I usually go through it, and if I don't like something in the contract, I will mention it.
Right.
Yeah, so I think we are now starting to actually change the power play.
Yeah.
We need to get involved in the contracting process.
Exactly.
Yeah, so anyway.
Yes, and that's the point, not just for photographic artists, but music studios as well. Music artists should have a fairer position of bargaining power to say that either the amount of money is too low or I need to have equitable ownership, that I can have a stake in further proceeds. The problem that many of our copyright or creative artists have is that they want to take that paycheck which makes them surrender the work. George Lucas, famed director of Star Wars, changed the dynamics in the US back in the 60s when he did the first Star Wars movie. He refused to take a paycheck for the Star Wars and instead had them engineer a contract to the effect that they would give him a certain percentage of every single proceed of merchandise sale. So you can imagine how many Star Wars t-shirts, capes, bags, and everything that are out there. And he takes
earns a little bit of it.
To this very day, he keeps becoming a billionaire and billionaire. So can we have people who negotiate in a way and say, no, I'm not going to take that 5 million for my song, but every time it plays, that's how MTN make their money. I should be taking.
I think that is a more brilliant way to use the law to your benefit.
Yes.
And the issue now is that to be able to apply the law, you must know the law. Now that brings us to awareness. How do you get to know these things?
Consult.
I mean, I'm not going to pick up like a whole book on copyright law.
Right.
Well, how do we then get to get this information like funneled down to our context, and like we are now able to use it practically without having to go through the hassle of studying?
So I've attended hundreds of workshops with music artists in Uganda, trying to educate them and trying to talk to them about issues of copyright, where to go to and the like. One of the frustrating or disappointing situations is where you meet some who feel they know more than you, or they come with their anger.
Maybe
and
they know more music than you.
They know more music. I can't say no more music than them, but they feel that, we don't need a lawyer in a suit, and some of them have directly told me this, to come and tell us about all these things. I've been making money since such and such a day. My complaint is I wrote this song for so-and-so. He paid me the first time. Now I can see he's making so much money from my song and I've never been paid again. But they're forgetting that it's a contract. What did you stipulate in that contract? That you'll be paid the first time round. But the point I'm trying to make here is that it's very important to consult. They know their music. I can't say I know their music. I may know a little bit about music, but I know the law behind the music more.
So actually you're in a better position here. You know music.
Yes.
But you also know the law that governs the music.
Exactly. So it's just enough for them to walk up to not just me but anyone. Let them go to Uganda Registration Services Bureau, consult with the Intellectual Property Directorate and say, I have my song, what can I do now with my song? With copyright, like I said at the beginning, you get copyright protection the minute you put something into a fixed form. You may even get toilet paper and write your lyrics on toilet paper. That's your copyright.
My thing.
You get a phone and you record it on phone. That's your copyright. Getting it registered is optional.
And I'm seeing a lot of people with, how social media is a liberal platform. I'm seeing so many people creating content that apparently belongs to them, but it's now being used by other people.
And that's direct infringement. But they don't know that their work is being stolen, because it's infringement is stealing. And even the one who is stealing may not even know that what he's doing is wrong. But ignorance of the law is no defense. They can still be held accountable.
Then there's also a credit. So I gave you credit for your work. That is also, I think, another side of copyright. Where someone will say, you did not give me credit.
What's called the moral right?
Yeah, I don't know how that
under the copyright
works.
law, there are two sets of rights that one enjoys under copyright law. One is the economic right, which is any kind of financial benefit from reproduction, distribution, and anything related to what you do with the copyright. That's an economic right. The second right is what they call the moral right. That's the right of attribution or recognition, to say that this is Chagulanyi's song, this is Bebeko's song, this is Ambrose's photography. That's the moral right of crediting.
So that is it has to be attributed to you.
You have to attribute to a person.
And let me ask, does that mean that enforcement can ensue if you do not attribute?
That's right.
So guys,
we had an interesting case.
If you don't give me credit for my work, I can say don't use that work.
That's right. We had a case, it didn't go far, in architecture, of all things, because even architecture drawings are copyright. So this architect walks into a law firm, this was some years back, and says, there's this building I've done in Uganda, they're launching the building, but they have not recognized me at all, and yet I get my future clients from previous recognitions. So we start on the paperwork, we say, yes, this is a direct case of moral rights attribution which is needed, and we're going to follow it up. And then he got cold feet and said, I may lose other clients because people will think, oh, I'm already suing anything.
Is the guy might
but
sue
then
me.
As we were preparing our research, we noticed that there are cases in Australia, there are cases in the US, there are cases in Canada where architects have sued over moral right, where they've not been recognized for their work. So if this is just in the field of architecture, other fields also follow that you can do the same.
I think I've had a similar case. I'd gone to this launch of a report, and the author of the report was not, recognized, and there was exchange there,
right?
And clearly, the client felt no need for giving credit, and yet the other party felt like credit was more than everything else,
Yes.
But what I've also noticed is that when a client gives you work in Uganda, I want to be very specific. The idea is that they're doing you a favor.
Unfortunately.
I'm giving you money and you're telling me copyright, So I think as an economy that is still growing, not until we go beyond the money, but rather reputation and things that are not money related, then we can start to also have a conversation on it's not about money, but it's about me. I mean, like, let's say you do an article and it's attributed to another person. I did that. I'm not going to mention the newspaper, but when I was starting out in photography, one of the biggest newspapers in this country used my photograph and attributed it to another photographer. And
you could have sued for that.
I could have, and the person that linked me up to the newspaper felt like maybe I was being petty, or like even just my photograph appearing in that newspaper. It's a privilege for me, So there's that issue of the power dynamic of, who has more power
rights,
here.
Right. I think it's all about undermining your rights. I would dare say that Uganda's intellectual property field is really growing. I mean, I've been in it for close to 20 years now, and if I look back at where we were to where we are now, there is an increase in cases. At first, it was only trademark-related cases because it's business people saying so-and-so has copied my logo or my trademark, but now we have an increase in copyright cases. So the awareness is growing, but we need to have more of this so that people realize that, hey, if I do wrong, I can be sued for the other. We still have a lot to go. We have to deal with the judiciary in the sense that where you take these cases, unfortunately, some of our judges also have not yet got the gist of copyright matters. So some of the judgments come out in ways in which we could have expected better. But things are getting better. I'm really positive that the cup is half full and not half empty. Yeah.
What next? Now that we are starting to understand the law, where do we run to? In case of infringement, where do we go?
There are two areas. Three, actually. If you
Because
come to
I
think of
remember
it.
I was telling you, if you go and tell police, if right now I go to Kira Road Police and tell them, man, that guy has stolen my song, most likely they're going to laugh at me.
That's true, but things have changed. In the beginning, yes, I had someone who complained to me, this was about 10 years ago, that I was trying to report to CPS that my copyright has been stolen, and they were saying, oh, bring us an exhibit so to see what it looks like. Because copyright is intangible. You can't really see.
You can't see it, yeah.
So what did Uganda Registration Services Bureau do about this? That's the National Intellectual Property Office. They opened up Intellectual Property Protection Unit within Uganda Registration Services Bureau. This is a unit that is run by police people who have been trained in intellectual property. Some of them are lawyers, police lawyers who know intellectual property. But of course, you've said Shira Road, someone may go to Nasana Police. Not every police person knows.
Yeah.
So the police are being gradually trained, and as long as you have this central unit, it keeps sending out information.
You know, it's
others.
like how every police station has the family protection unit.
Yes,
they should put intellectual property unit as well.
That's true.
So that people can go and claim, infringement on their intellectual property.
So the police is one thing. The other is, of course, going to URSB themselves. Of course, police is under them, but also reporting to URSB. And then, of course, the lawyers. We have few. Out of over 4,000 lawyers practicing in Uganda, there are about 400 or so. We have a cluster, which I am privileged to head under the Uganda Law Society, the Intellectual Property Cluster. So we're about 250 to 300 lawyers that are specializing in intellectual property, but the number keeps growing. The number keeps growing. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's always interesting how scaling up any effort on the surface looks like easy, but there's so many considerations. Right now, you have units, right? Maybe at the judiciary or I don't know, at the police station, but scaling it up, I would believe is going to be an intention.
Yes.
Or by the government itself.
That's true.
Yeah, so I think the government has to take a step in recognizing that this affects the country, affects everybody, like the way we run when COVID comes and we say, okay, let's mobilize and have this solution for this problem. So copyright law is something very important to everybody, to that woman out there that is maybe weaving her baskets, to that guy out there who mixes herbs and comes up with concoctions, So for me, I would say it's important for government to take it up seriously. But again, also on the flip side of the coin, for the creatives, searching for knowledge should be one of the things that we take seriously. Much as you are a photographer, a filmmaker, an artist, I think it is upon you to, go on and look for information about copyright, because, like I said, how do you start suing someone for something you don't understand? Because at the end of the day, you're going to look when you go to the courts of law, you look funny, So creatives go out and look for that information. But then also, as a closing question, where is the information about copyright? Where do we find it as creatives?
Well, first of all, what capacity do we have? Capacity in the sense that do all creatives have the ability to check online? Because there's a multitude of information online that is free. World Intellectual Property Organization has a whole mountain of resources that are freely downloadable. So if you have the capacity to get that using your phone and you just download from Google, then that information is there.
But you also know that people like to relate with things that are closer to home.
Right. So then the second option is look at Uganda Registration Services Bureau. It has the Intellectual Property Directorate. Walk in, get free information. They won't charge you for anything there.
But we can also consult you.
And then again, the third, that's why I put us as lawyers as number 3, because our information, yes, we can't give out some that is free, but because this is our bread and butter, then the other bit has to be paid for. So if you're ready to make the payment, which is not cheap, then you come to the lawyers, because it's not cheap in the sense that it comes back to you. So you get the consultation to find out that your song or whatever creative work was copied illegally. You pay for our services, but then you get back 3-4 times fold. So you look at that way that it's an investment that, okay, I'll pay for these legal services, but at least I know I'm getting value for money. Then they take up my matter, we have it prosecuted or enforced, and then I get back 100 times what I've lost. Yes.
So it's a lot to unpack from a professor. And I now conclude that we definitely have to have another conversation. We need to have another conversation that will take us deeper into understanding of copyright law and how we can apply it to our own work here. So for me, I would say this is just the beginning of our conversations together. And, having you enlighten us more about copyright law. But moving away from copyright law, I also got news that you have launched a book about... Please, let me not unpack it myself. Let me let you unpack it for us. You've written a book and we would like to know about this book. I personally want to get a copy and read it, but maybe you could share with us, you could give us insight about this book.
Okay, thank you. So the book is called, I have a copy here, it's called Conversations to Have with Our Children, A Call for Resolute Grooming. And in this book, I decided to put pen to paper on the various conversations I've been having with our 3 children. My wife and I, passionate about Christ and seeing that our children grow up in a Christian molded home, following biblical principles. We felt that it's not just enough to always talk to our kids, which we do all the time. Some things go deep to the soul, some things just come out through one ear, go through the other ear, and that's natural. But putting this into writing, picking up specific scriptures and how they relate to how we interact together as human beings. It's not just about the kids, but even us as humans. A child coming home and saying, I was bullied, I don't want to go back to school tomorrow. How do we speak to a child about that? Or a child coming and saying that, oh, I have an interest in this girl, or there's this boy who has an interest in me, or I'm getting all these changes in my body. What Christian principle or biblical principle can we pick from that talks about that? Or a child saying that, I've seen my teachers say all these kinds of things in the classroom, or there's this girl in class who said this about the other person or about me. We need to constantly encourage our children in 2 ways in which they can understand the world out there, that it's not an innocent world. They're innocent. They get into this world as innocent, and then as they suck in the positives and negatives, they go in any kind of direction. But as parents, we naturally want them to follow a specific direction. And it's not enough to constantly talk to them. It's encouraged for us to do this. But if you put it into writing, you're recording it for a number of purposes, that they can always get back to reading this. The book is not that read from page 1 to last page. You pick on any page, there are different principles on any page that relate to life for any individual that speak into our lives. And I want to encourage any person's child or any person as to how they speak to their children to pick from these principles. And that's the purpose of putting it into a record, that it can be picked out anytime and anyone can relate with it.
You know, when you talk about parenting, I would say I've seen you do parenting at a personal level, like firsthand. And one of the things that I was sharing with you here was that I've learned things from you. You've not told me directly, you've not had a conversation, say, Sparkers, you do this. But by just observing you, there's so much I've learned. But also when it comes to parenting, I'll remind you, I don't know whether you remember. I remember there's a time when we would go like for family gatherings, and I think you really encouraged your children to eat healthy, like no sodas, and some family members would be like, no, you need to let the kids do, and I would sometimes you'd concede kala. So for me, that memory shows me that you not only care for maybe one side of one element, like parents that focus on school, but it showed me that Actually, Uncle Tony not only cares about school or discipline, but also the health of a child, but also making compromises of only today, So that compromise. So me, I saw it and I was like, okay, there are rules, but there are compromises as well.
Yes.
So for me, that's my first-hand experience seeing you being a parent. So
Sure.
it doesn't come as a surprise when you write such a book. But I would ask, who is this book for?
It's for anyone. Some people would think, last week, for instance, when I was in Geneva, there's family friends I have there, and I was talking to a 21-year-old child from the family that I have friendship, and he was saying, I've seen your book, and I told him, you should read it, and he said, well, it's not yet for me. But no, it is for anyone. For parents, of course, to see how they can relate better with their children, but even children who either have parents who are talking to them, or even don't have parents that have talked to them, can pick from this because it speaks to us. The book speaks to us, and yes, even though I've written it, of course, the credit is to God. It's talking about Christian principles. So it's the Holy Spirit speaking to any individual as to how we can relate with the world around us.
And for me, I like the fact that the title, that conversations to have with our children. There is a growing gap between us and our children. And I remember when I was studying divinity at A level, we studied what we call the generational gap. If the generational gap was 1 kilometer, today it is 10.
Right. Yes.
So when you say conversations, a conversation is an intimate exchange.
Yes.
So for me, I don't know, but I feel like that's the essence of this book. Like that intimate exchange with your son or with your daughter. So,
and the conversation is two-way. You're speaking to them the way I'm speaking to you now.
It's not talking down.
Exactly. The African setting is we tend to speak down at our students. You shut up, I'm the one talking.
There are certain clear-cut statements like "Mukulu tasobya," "Mukulu tebamuddamu."
So I even have something on that in the book. So I talk about the fact that the African setup is about telling the child to shut up and it's only the parent to talk. So that's not a conversation with the child. We should get to listen to them. What do they value? And then we direct them in the right direction, or even own up and say, okay, now I understand that, and how can we relate better with them, but guided by Christian principles.
So lastly, where can we pick this book up, and how much does it cost?
So there are in a number of bookshops, Aristoc, Uganda Bookshop, and then I think that there's another one called Pearl Bookshop in Entebbe, 35,000 shillings. Yes.
You know very well Ugandans don't like to read.
That's a problem.
But I'm personally going to buy this book for myself, and I'm going to. This is now my offer to you. I'm going to try and push it. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to do reviews about it. I'll read it page for page.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll try to. They're young parents, and I guess this is some of the information that would be good for them. So you definitely share with me where it can be found. I want to put it in like proper card kind of information and share with other people.
Thank you.
But
that's appreciated.
I would like to conclude by saying I'm very honored and very privileged to know you as a person, but also inspired by the words of wisdom that you keep sharing with me, even out of this conversation about copyright law and all that. But we've had conversations about life. I remember when I was doing procurement, you advised me, and now I'm here doing this. Still, you're going to be my advisor because you are directly involved. I mean, why not call you up and consult on a contract I'm having with a client, So for me, you are that beacon of knowledge and inspiration. So thank you so much for honoring my invite.
Thank you
and
very much.
To be honest, we've not exhausted this. And for those that are watching, this conversation will continue, but I believe you've learned a thing or two. For creatives, you know your rights now, though not fully, but you also know what to do in case you have copyright infringement. You can reach out to the lawyers. There are systems that are being put in place, though not yet, fully fledged, but there are systems that are being put in place. And I think it's a new dawn for creatives. Now you can claim the true value of your work. So thank you so much for catching these photo conversations with Now, like I said, I'm not going to call him Anthony Kakoza. I'm going to call him Professor Anthony Kakoza. Thank you so much, and catch you on the next one. Cheers.